For years, the mountain bike industry has agonized over creating suspension designs which eliminate pedal bob. Now, in rough terms, pedal bob is the kind of seasick-like movement which occurs when you apply different pressure to the cranks whilst climbing. Now, many brands have actually succeeded, which means that when climbing, a lot of bikes are actually quite stable. For other brands, it's a kind of up and down game. Apart from suspension designs, very clever suspension designs, we also have the shock absorbers and the forks. Now, the dials on these are said to increase the climbing performance on eMTBs. Now, what distinguishes high and low end shock absorbers is features such as the compression and rebound adjusters, and also a nifty little feature called the Lockout. Now, it's important to point out that it's not actually called Lockout on all shock absorbers, and the reason for that is that the shock doesn't actually lock out, it simply adds compression damping to make it, well, kind of locked out. My question is whilst it might be a useful tool on an eMTB whilst climbing, is it of any use to an eMTB? The bike I'm riding today is my Specialized Levo Alloy Comp. Now, what distinguishes lower end bikes from higher end ones is the tunability of the shock absorbers, which means more dials. Now on this bike, this has got the Fox Float X, and we've got a rebound adjuster and a lockout. Actually, it's not called lockout, it's called firm. So we can actually term this video firm or floppy rather than loose or locked. But more of that later. What we're going to do then is ride two typical e-mountain bike climbs, one forest track and one tech climb. So we're going to use the bike in both a firm or floppy setting, or should we call it open or closed, or loose or locked, or simply hard or soft. Of course, whilst on eMTB, you might well be stood up climbing on a hill like this. On an eMTB, the most efficient technique is to sit down and spin, whereby you get the best position and also the best support for your motor. So, I think time now then to dive in to some flat roads and some tech climbs. I'm nearing the top of the first climb, which is the forest track. And remember, on gradients like this, they're pretty consistent, so there's no body movements forward or aft. You're in the same gear, you're spinning the right cadence. Just gonna find out the time, of which is, let's go to the barrier there. First forest track in the loose position, 1:31.83. Oh, I can't believe I've never done this test before. This is definitely the place for the eMTB lockout, but I'm now locked out. I have to say that the body position feels better in lockout, although maybe a little bit rougher on the bum, but proof is in the pudding, isn't it? Oh, interesting. The time is 1:27.66. I'm actually genuinely surprised. I did not think it would make any difference, but that's 4 seconds or a minute and a half. Think about the time it's going to make over a day, and the power and the battery usage and stuff like that. I'm genuinely shocked. I'm looking forward to getting into the tech climb. Now, before we move into the more involved world of technical climbing, I just want to rewind just quickly to point out that a forest track, a smooth forest track, is actually quite fixed in terms of what's going on. For example, you're usually in the same gear, your body's not moving fore and aft too much. But on a technical climb, things are quite different, and such things as the wheelbase, the seat tube angle, your seat position, and your stem will actually have an effect on the climbing technique and speed that you have.
What about chainstay length and reach?
Ah yeah, of course, there's also the chainstay length and the reach of your bike. Now, that's going to come into play because that determines where the balance position you have on your bike is. So folks, let's go into hard versus soft, lock versus loose, or firm versus floppy on a technical climb. Well, I think this is not as much a question of locked versus loose as can I or can't I? See you later. So pretty surprised I did that. That could have been a section on an EMTB power stage. Wasn't so much, as I mentioned, a case of locked versus loose, but can I or can't I? I did on that occasion. Maybe such things as the tyre choice, which might come into play on a climb like that, but that was loose. I'm now going to go for locked. Now locked, I can already feel that it's a bit of a rougher ride with less traction, but I guess it's down to rider technique and if the gears work. Oh hell, pretty much got there. That was so complicated. What's the time on that?
21:54.
So it's slower by a fraction. I think that's because the back wheel is spinning a little bit more. And the good thing about the open system is it keeps the tyre digging into the ground and gives you traction. So there's probably more body changes going on the soft system, but definitely gives you more grip, unlike the cameraman. Oh, cameraman's down. Oh man, 20 seconds. Just can't sustain more than like 2 minutes on tack climbs. That's why locked versus loose, hard versus soft is so important. Now I'm now on Matt, the cameraman's bike, which is actually 170mm travel front and rear. Not got any lockout. It's also got a ball tyre and not enough air in the shock, but right technique, hopefully, should. Oh yes! Didn't expect that, did you? So I think it's about as much about technique as it is about locked versus loose, hard versus soft. It's about body position, I think. Getting the right traction at the right time, and also working out your line up the hill. So you're looking for the line of least resistance and making sure that you're not putting the power down on such things as a wet route. So timing comes into it. It's actually quite a complex subject and tiring. I think that's illustrated then that suspension setup is very much a game of profit and loss, even from simple things such as being locked out versus loose, hard or soft. But it's quite a complex business, as we saw on the tech climb. Even though the bike in the soft position did mean there was more body transfer during the climb, what it did mean was that that tyre was digging in and therefore gaining you more forward momentum than on the locked up position, which meant that there was a bit of spinning going on. On the smoother forest track, as I mentioned during the climb, your body is possibly in a better position. It's in a more relaxed position, it's a more upright position. And maybe that, combined with the fact that there was no energy loss going through your legs, meant for a faster climb. But folks, it's a very complex business. It all depends on your bike setup as well. So for example, one bike which is locked out might actually climb better than another bike which is in a loose position, just simply due to the geometry of the bike. But folks, let us know your thoughts and comments. Please don't forget to subscribe to EMBN to see more e-mountain bike content. And yeah, look forward to you guys tackling these technical or smooth climbs, locked out or loose.